In the hushed aisles of the town's struggling public library, retired Principal Arthur Finch, a man adrift in his own quiet regret, reached for a dusty poetry collection. His fingers stilled, tracing a familiar youthful scrawl in the margin. L. Petrova. The name read, a ghost etched in ink. Arthur clutched the book, its worn cover a stark reminder of a past he couldn't outrun. Lena Petrova. The name echoed in the cavernous silence of his living room, a whisper of old guilt. 20 years ago, in the sterile confines of his principal's office, he had delivered the verdict. Lena, your actions leave me no choice. Her eyes, defiant yet wounded, had held a silent accusation. He had seen the injustice then, felt the tremor of his own cowardice, but had let the rigid demands of the school board silence his conscience. The memory was a shard of glass, forever lodged in his heart. The next morning, Arthur returned to the library, the poetry book tucked under his arm. Brenda Jenkins, the librarian, a woman whose calm demeanor belied a keen observational eye, greeted him. "Morning, Arthur. Anything I can help you find today?" Arthur cleared his throat, his gaze unusually intense. "Brenda, I'm looking for an old borrowing record." "For this book?" He gestured vaguely. "I believe a student, Lena Petrova, might have checked it out decades ago." Brenda noted the tremor in his hand, the subtle shift in his usually placid expression, but simply nodded. "I'll see what I can dig up, Arthur. It might take a while." Back in his study, surrounded by stacks of old yearbooks and a laptop, Arthur embarked on a digital ghost hunt. He typed Lena Petrova's name into search engines, cross-referencing with old school directories. The internet, a vast ocean of information, yielded countless L. Petrovas, artists, students, mothers, but none felt like his Lena. Frustration tightened his chest. How easily a life could vanish, swallowed by the relentless march of time, leaving behind only echoes and the indelible stain of regret. He scrolled, determined, yet a sense of fading hope began to settle in. The untold story of Lena's expulsion. Was it justice, or a principal's tragic mistake? Asterisk. The air in Principal Arthur Finch's office, 20 years ago, was thick with unspoken tension. Lena Petrova, barely 16, sat ramrod straight, her young face a mask of defiant dignity, her vibrant, rebellious artwork, a stylized protest against the school's rigid dress code, rendered in bold acrylics, propped against the wall like a silent witness. Opposite Arthur, Mr. Harrison, a school board member whose suit seemed tailored from granite, cleared his throat. "Principal Finch." Harrison's voice was a low, authoritative rumble. "This, art, is a disruption. It undermines school integrity. We must make an example." Arthur's gaze flickered from Harrison's unyielding expression to Lena's quiet, intelligent eyes. He wanted to defend her, to speak of her talent, the raw, unbridled creativity he saw. But the words caught in his throat, choked by the weight of his own position, the fear of challenging the formidable board. "Lena," he began, his voice betraying a hesitation he desperately tried to mask. This is unacceptable." Lena didn't flinch, her gaze steady, not at Arthur, but at her painting. Arthur felt a sickening lurch in his gut. He was about to break a spirit, not discipline a child. "Is this the breakthrough? A faded article? A desperate hope?" Asterisks. Back in the present, the memory of that day still burned, a phantom limb of regret. Arthur, hunched over his laptop in the dim glow of his study, felt the familiar ache. He had spent hours sifting through digital archives, old community newsletters, anything that might mention an L. Petrova. The name was common enough to be frustratingly elusive, a digital ghost in a sea of data. Just as despair began to settle in, a small, faded article from a local arts and culture blog, dated 5 years after Lena's expulsion, caught his eye. "Local talent shines at Art in Bloom exhibit," the headline read. And there, buried in a list of contributing artists, was L. Petrova. The article spoke of a piece titled "Resilience in Rust," describing a unique mixed-media style that blended discarded industrial elements with delicate natural forms. Resilience. The word resonated deep within Arthur. It was so distinctly Lena. He felt a flicker, a fragile flame of hope ignite in the cavern of his guilt. This wasn't just a name, it was a signature, a whisper across 2 decades, a thread of destiny he might still follow. The trail heats up. A forgotten artist, a surprising return. Asterisk, The next morning, Arthur found himself standing before the Canvas Nook, a small, independent art gallery nestled in the next town over, the one mentioned in the faded article. Inside, vibrant, eclectic pieces adorned every wall, a stark contrast to the sterile halls of his former life. The gallery owner, a woman with paint-splattered hands and a kind, discerning eye, looked at him expectantly. "I'm looking for an artist," Arthur began, his voice a little shaky. "Lena Petrova. She exhibited here years ago." The owner's face lit up. "Lena?" Oh, Lena was a talent. So much raw emotion in her work. A real eye for the overlooked beauty in the world. She paused, a thoughtful frown creasing her brow. She was a bright spark, then just vanished for a while. Life, I suppose. But I heard she moved back to Northwood recently. Said she needed to be closer to family. A surge of anticipation, laced with trepidation, washed over Arthur. Lena was close. The truth, and his chance at redemption, was closer still. The town holds its secrets close. Can Arthur find the courage to face his? Asterix. Arthur left the gallery, the news of Lena's return a heavy, hopeful weight in his chest. He drove back to Northwood, the familiar streets now imbued with a new, urgent significance. The town had aged, storefronts changed, but the bones remained the same. He passed the old high school, its brick facade weathered but unyielding, a monument to his past and his greatest failure. A sharp pang of guilt, a familiar phantom ache, twisted in his gut. Lena was here, in this very town, struggling perhaps because of a decision he had made 2 decades ago. The thought of confronting her, of peeling back the layers of polite society to expose the raw wound of his past, was daunting. He imagined her face, hardened by time, perhaps still holding that quiet defiance. What would he say? How could he possibly apologize for 20 years of lost opportunities, for a future he had inadvertently derailed? The courage he needed felt as elusive as Lena herself had been. A quiet librarian holds the key. The first real hint of Lena's new life. Asterisk. Later that afternoon, Arthur found himself back in the hushed sanctuary of the public library. He approached Brenda, who was meticulously reshelving a stack of biographies. "Brenda," he began, his voice lower than usual, a hint of vulnerability in his tone. "You wouldn't happen to know a Lena Petrova, would you? An artist, perhaps?" Brenda paused, her fingers still on the spine. She looked at Arthur with her usual quiet perceptiveness, a knowing glint in her eyes. "Lena Petrova?" she murmured, a gentle smile touching her lips. "Yes, I believe so. A young woman, quiet, always with her little girl. She comes in sometimes, usually to the art history section, always looking for books on impressionists or modern sculpture. Says her daughter loves the pictures." Arthur's heart gave a jolt. A child. Lena was a mother. The truth was not just close. It was walking through the very doors of this library. After 2 decades, a principal sees his expelled student. What will he do next? Asterisk. Arthur began to wait. He frequented the library for the next few days, pretending to read, his gaze subtly scanning the entrance. Then, one Tuesday afternoon, she appeared. Lena Petrova. She walked in with a small, bright-eyed child clutching her hand. Her clothes were simple, worn but clean, a subtle testament to a life lived on the fringes. Her hair, once a wild cascade, was now pulled back in a practical ponytail. There was a weariness etched around her eyes, but beneath it, Arthur saw the same resolute spirit, the quiet strength that had defined her even as a girl. She guided her daughter to the children's section, then headed, as Brenda had said, to the art books, her brow furrowed in concentration. Arthur watched her, a profound sadness mixing with a burgeoning admiration. She had endured, she had not broken. And he, the man who had played a part in her hardship, was now a silent observer in her quiet, resilient world. The moment of truth. A principal prepares to face the student he wronged. The image of Lena, weary yet resolute, haunted Arthur through the night. The next morning, he sat at his kitchen table, the dog-eared poetry book open before him. Lena's youthful scrawl, a stark contrast to his trembling hand. He had to speak to her. The thought sent a cold shiver through him, but the alternative, living another day with the crushing weight of his guilt, was far worse. He practiced his words, whispering apologies into the empty room. "Lena, I was wrong. I let external pressures dictate my judgment." He imagined her reaction. Anger. Disbelief. Perhaps a cold dismissal. He deserved it. He looked into the mirror, seeing the lines of age, the regret in his own eyes. This wasn't about him. Not anymore. It was about her, about acknowledging the injustice, about offering whatever meager amends he could. With a heavy, resolute sigh, Arthur closed the book. The time for hiding was over. The fluorescent hum of the library's art section felt strangely amplified to Arthur Finch. He gripped the worn poetry book, its weight a heavy reminder of the past he carried. Across the aisle, Lena Petrova, her back to him, meticulously scanned the spines of art history texts. Her daughter Maya, a vibrant splash of color in a bright yellow dress, sat on the floor, quietly sketching on a small pad. Arthur took a deep, shaky breath, the air suddenly thin. He approached, each step a deliberate act of courage. The book extended slightly. "Lena?" His voice, a whisper of his former authoritative tone, cracked with uncharacteristic nervousness. She turned, and in that instant, the years melted away. Her eyes, still holding that defiant spark he remembered, widened in an unreadable mixture of recognition and shock. Her expression froze, a mask of guardedness sliding into place. She took the book from his outstretched hand, her fingers brushing his, a jolt of unspoken history passing between them. She offered a curt, almost imperceptible nod, her gaze fixed just beyond his shoulder, refusing to meet his eyes. The unspoken tension in the quiet library was suffocating. Back in the sanctuary of her cramped apartment, the evening light struggled to penetrate the single window. Lena Petrova moved with a quiet efficiency born of exhaustion, preparing a meager dinner of pasta and canned sauce. Maya, oblivious to the day's strange encounter, hummed softly as she drew a fantastical creature at the small, wobbly kitchen table. Lena's eyes drifted to the poetry book Arthur had given her, lying on the counter. A flicker of old memories, half-formed images of a girl who once filled margins with dreams, danced at the edge of her consciousness. But the past was a luxury she couldn't afford. There were bills to pay, a hungry child to feed, and rent that never seemed to get smaller. Her guardedness wasn't born of malice, but of a fierce, desperate need to protect the fragile life she had built. She pushed the book aside, its sentimental value overshadowed by the immediate, pressing demands of survival. "More sauce, Mama?" Maya asked, her innocent voice pulling Lena back to the present. Lena offered a weary but loving smile. "Of course, my little artist." The next morning, Arthur returned to the library, the encounter with Lena replaying in his mind like a broken record. He found Brenda at the circulation desk, methodically sorting returns. She didn't want to talk," Arthur confessed, his usual composure rattled. "Her eyes, Brenda. They held so much resentment." Brenda looked up, her gaze empathetic and knowing. 20 years is a long time, Arthur. And some wounds cut deep." She paused, tapping a pen against her chin. Maybe a direct approach isn't the way. Lena's a proud woman. Perhaps an anonymous gesture? Something to support her art, without obligation? Arthur considered this, the hum of the library a gentle backdrop to his internal struggle. The thought of helping Lena without directly demanding her attention or forgiveness felt both cowardly and profoundly right. It was a way to offer solace, not seek absolution, at least not yet. Later that day, Arthur sought refuge in a local coffee shop, nursing a lukewarm cup of tea. He looked up to see a familiar, slightly stooped figure with paint-stained hands and a kindly, perpetually optimistic face. "Henderson. Mr. Henderson, is that you?" It was Robert Henderson, Lena's former art teacher, a man whose passion for creativity had been a rare beacon in Northwood High's rigid hallways. Henderson's face lit up. "Arthur, haven't seen you since." "Well, you know." Their conversation inevitably turned to Lena. "Such a talent, that girl." Henderson sighed, a wistful note in his voice. "The school board, That Harrison fellow, they just didn't understand. Saw her art as a threat, not a gift. It broke my heart when she was expelled. So much potential, just squashed. Arthur listened, a quiet agreement forming in his gut. Henderson's words were a painful validation of the guilt he carried, but also a rekindling of his belief in Lena's enduring spirit. Inspired by Brenda's suggestion and Henderson's heartfelt words, Arthur found himself at the community center's art notice board a few days later. He carefully pinned up a small, anonymously handwritten flyer. It wasn't about Lena Petrova by name, but about a local artist whose work captures the quiet beauty of our town, exploring themes of resilience and hope. He described her unique, evocative style, omitting any identifying details. His hope was a delicate thing, a fragile whisper in the vastness of the world. He simply wished for her talent to be recognized, for a small commission to find its way to her, easing a burden he knew too well. He hoped it would be a ripple, a silent act of kindness, reaching her without intrusion, without the shadow of his past looming over it. As he walked away, a subtle sense of purpose, not entirely selfish, settled within him. A few days later, the shrill ring of her ancient flip phone startled Lena from a focused sketch. It was a local dry cleaning business, surprisingly. They'd seen a flyer at the community center. Someone had mentioned a local artist with a unique way of capturing the soul of the town. They were expanding and wanted a small mural for their waiting area, something that evoked a sense of quiet strength. Lena listened, disbelief warring with a cautious flicker of hope. A commission? It was small, barely enough to cover a week's groceries, but it was Grigsy work. Real, paid art. Maya, who had been coloring on the floor, looked up, sensing the shift in her mother's demeanor. Lena ended the call, her hand trembling slightly as she clutched the phone. "Maya, honey," she said, a rare, genuine smile gracing her lips. "Mama has a new project." It wasn't a fortune, but it was a lifeline, a chance to breathe. The news reached Arthur through Brenda, as most things in their small town eventually did. "Heard that artist girl got a commission," Brenda remarked casually as Arthur helped her reshelve a cart of books. "The dry cleaner down on Main Street." Said the flyer was a bit vague, but the description of the art sounded just right. Arthur paused, a book in his hand, a quiet satisfaction spreading through him. His efforts, however indirect, had borne fruit. It was a small victory, but a significant one. Knowing that Lena was still creating, still finding avenues for her talent, despite the harshness of her life, filled him with a renewed determination. He nodded, a subtle smile playing on his lips. Brenda, ever observant, caught his glance, a knowing warmth in her eyes. The first ripple had spread, and Arthur knew he couldn't stop now. He needed to see her art, to truly understand the woman she had become. In the hushed stillness of Lena Petrova's cramped apartment, long after Maya had drifted into sleep, the only sound was the soft scratching of charcoal against paper. A single, bare bulb cast a warm, intimate glow over Lena's intense face, illuminating the lines of exhaustion etched around her eyes, yet failing to dim the fire within them. She was working on a sketch for the mural commission, her hands moving with a fluid precision that belied her weariness. Her art was more than just a means to an end. It was a sanctuary, a canvas where resilience bloomed into quiet beauty. Tonight, her sketch depicted a lone tree, gnarled and weathered, yet reaching towards an unseen sun, its roots deeply anchored. It was a silent testament to her own enduring spirit, a dialogue with the hardship that had shaped her, and the hope that still flickered. He watches from the shadows. What secret does a principal discover about his expelled student? Arthur Finch sat in a booth at the Morning Spoon, a local diner, the day's newspaper held strategically high, but his gaze wasn't on the headlines. It was fixed on a table across the room. There, Lena Petrova shared a simple breakfast with her daughter Maya. Lena's uniform was crisp, her movements efficient, but Arthur noticed the faint shadows beneath her eyes, the way she carefully portioned out the last pancake. Yet, a quiet dignity permeated her every action. He watched as Maya recounted some childhood triumph, Lena listening with a patient smile, her hand gently brushing her daughter's hair. It was a scene of ordinary, profound love, played out against a backdrop of struggle. Arthur felt a pang of regret, sharp and cold. He had judged this woman by a moment, a rule, a perceived disruption. He had been blind to the depth of her character, her quiet strength, her unwavering devotion. His past self seemed a distant, unfeeling stranger. A principal's confession. Can words ever truly erase a 20-year-old wound? Back in the quiet solitude of his study, Arthur Finch sat surrounded by crumpled paper. He had been trying for hours to pen an apology, a letter to Lena. Each attempt felt hollow, inadequate, or worse, condescending. Dear Lena, I regret the circumstances. Too formal. Lena, I was wrong. Too abrupt. He sighed, tearing another sheet from his notepad. How could he distill 2 decades of guilt, of a life lived with a phantom regret, into a few sentences? How could he acknowledge the immense pain he had caused, without sounding self-serving, without seeking absolution at her expense? The weight of the pen in his hand felt monumental, each word a stone. It wasn't just about his apology, it was about the life she had lived because of his decision. He knew, with a sinking heart, that words on a page might never be enough. The art that got her expelled, was it rebellion or a cry for help? A memory, sharp and vibrant, flashed through Arthur's mind, pulling him back 2 decades. The old Northwood High gymnasium, filled with the scent of varnish and fresh paint. Lena, then a whirlwind of youthful energy, stood on a scaffold, brush in hand, bringing a colossal mural to life. It was a vibrant explosion of color, depicting students soaring amidst open books and bursting stars, a defiant, joyful ode to creativity. But tucked subtly within the swirling constellations, a small, almost imperceptible detail, a tiny, caged bird, its eyes filled with longing. Arthur, in his rigid principal's uniform, had seen only the disruption, the, quote, unauthorized artwork, a subtle act of rebellion against the school's conservative ethos. He had dismissed it as mere, quote, graffiti, a breach of rules, rather than a poignant work of art, a quiet plea for understanding. The image of that caged bird now haunted him, a symbol of his own blindness. He found her secret sanctuary. What message will he leave behind? Guided by Brenda's casual suggestion, Arthur found himself at the local park, by the winding river. It was a secluded spot, dappled with sunlight filtering through ancient oaks. He walked slowly, his gaze searching until he saw it. A small, half-finished sketch tucked beneath a smooth river stone. It was Lena's unmistakable hand, a delicate rendering of a heron in flight, its wings catching the light. He picked it up, his fingers tracing the pencil lines, feeling an intimate connection to her artistic spirit, a silent dialogue across the chasm of their shared past. This was her refuge, her quiet space of creation. He wished he could tell her how profoundly her art moved him now, how deeply he regretted his past judgment. Instead, he reached into his pocket, pulling out a small, wrapped package. He carefully placed it beside the sketch, a silent token of encouragement, hoping it would be understood. A mysterious gift. Is it a blessing or a new threat? Lena returned to her favorite spot by the river later that afternoon, her daughter Maya skipping ahead. Maya, with the boundless energy of youth, was the first to spot the small package. "Look, Mama, new pencils!" she exclaimed, her eyes wide with delight. Lena knelt, her expression a mix of surprise and caution. Inside the simple brown paper, nestled amongst wood shavings, was a brand new set of high-quality art pencils, their colors vibrant and untouched. A wave of gratitude washed over her, quickly followed by a prickle of suspicion. Who would leave such a thoughtful, yet anonymous gift? Was it a genuine act of kindness, or was there something more to it? Her life had taught her to be wary, to question unexpected blessings. She clutched the pencils, her mind racing, a new mystery unfolding in the quiet park. New pencils, new hope. Lena's art speaks volumes to an unseen benefactor. Back in her apartment, the new pencils lay spread across Lena's worn drawing table like precious jewels. Their smooth, rich pigment glided across the paper with an ease her old, stubby pencils could only dream of. Inspired, a creative dam seemed to break within her. She worked late into the night, the unexpected kindness, a silent fuel for her spirit. A powerful new piece emerged, a vibrant cityscape, not of concrete and steel, but of intertwined roots and blooming flowers reaching for the sky. It was a visual metaphor for her own journey, a testament to her resilience, and a silent conversation with the anonymous giver. The art flowed, cathartic and liberating, expressing the hopes she rarely dared to voice. It felt like a small, fragile seed of hope, planted by an unseen hand. The truth is revealed. The principal's secret kindness comes to light. The next day, Lena found herself drawn to the public library, the mystery of the pencils nagging at her. She approached Brenda Jenkins, who was meticulously organizing a shelf of biographies. "Brenda," Lena began, her voice a careful whisper. "I found something at the park, some art pencils. Do you know anything about it?" Brenda looked up, her expression calm and knowing. A gentle smile touched her lips. "Pencils, you say?" She mused, her gaze drifting subtly towards the corner where Arthur Finch often sat engrossed in a book. "Well, I suppose some people have a knack for noticing talent, even when it's hidden. And sometimes, those people want to help it bloom." Lena's eyes followed Brenda's glance. The pieces clicked into place. Not a threat, not a stranger. It was Arthur. A wave of complex emotions. Suspicion turning to curiosity, cautious hope battling old resentment, washed over her. The quiet librarian had just subtly unveiled a truth Lena never expected. The moment of truth had arrived for Arthur Finch. His knuckles, surprisingly steady, rapped against the worn wood of Lena Petrova's apartment door. In his other hand, he clutched the dog-eared poetry book, its familiar weight, a physical anchor to his purpose. The YouTube hook, asterisk, the moment of truth arrives. He's at her door. Will she let him in? Asterisk hung in the air, thick with anticipation. The door creaked open, revealing Lena. Her eyes, still holding that fierce, artistic spark, widened in an instant of pure surprise, before narrowing with a cold, unmistakable resentment. It was the face of a woman who remembered, a face that had built walls over 2 decades. "Mr. Finch," she said, her voice flat, devoid of welcome. "To what do I owe this unexpected visit?" Arthur swallowed, his carefully rehearsed words catching in his throat. "Lena," he began, his voice a hesitant whisper, I came to apologize, and to return this." He extended the book, a silent offering of peace. Lena took it, her fingers brushing his, a fleeting contact that sent a jolt of unspoken history through them both. She clutched the book to her chest, her gaze unwavering, challenging. "An apology?" she retorted, a bitter edge to her tone. "After 20 years? What could possibly be said now?" The tension in the narrow doorway was palpable, a fragile bridge threatening to collapse under the weight of their shared, painful past. Lena's apartment, small and filled with the quiet echoes of a life lived on the margins, felt suddenly vast and suffocating. She stepped back, allowing Arthur to enter, but her posture remained closed, her eyes wary. The YouTube hook, asterisk, 2 decades of pain, finally unleashed. Can Principal Finch bear the weight of her truth? Foreshadowed the raw emotional outpouring. Arthur began to speak, his words stumbling, trying to explain the pressures, the school board, the difficult decisions. "Lena, I was under immense pressure. The board, Mr. Harrison, they wanted to make an example. I thought at the time I was protecting the school's integrity." But Lena cut him off, her voice trembling, then rising with years of suppressed pain. "Protecting the school? Or protecting yourself, Mr. Finch?" Her eyes, now glistening with unshed tears, bore into him. "Do you know what that example did? It took away my scholarship. It made me a pariah. I couldn't get into art school, not with that black mark on my record. I worked 3 jobs just to survive, to put food on the table, to keep a roof over Maya's head." She gestured vaguely towards a closed bedroom door. "My art, my passion, became a secret, a luxury I couldn't afford." Arthur stood, head bowed, absorbing every word, every accusation, every shard of her broken dreams. The innocence of Maya's small voice calling, "Mommy?" from the bedroom only deepened his shame, a stark reminder of the life Lena had built despite his actions. The air in the apartment thrummed with Lena's unspoken pain, the weight of 2 decades of injustice. Arthur lifted his head, his eyes, now glistening with tears of his own, met hers. The YouTube hook, asterisk, the principal's ultimate confession. "I failed you. Can Lena ever forgive?" Asterisk set the stage for his vulnerable admission. "You're right, Lena," he said, his voice raw with emotion. "You are absolutely right. I wasn't protecting the school. I was protecting my position. I was a coward." The words, though difficult, poured out, unburdened by excuses. "I saw your talent, your spirit, your defiance, and I let fear, and the antiquated rules of men like Harrison blind me. I dismissed your art as graffiti, when it was a cry for expression, a vibrant truth. I knew, deep down, that you were innocent, that your art was not a disruption but a gift. And I failed you. I failed to be the principal who stood up for his student. I failed to be the man who recognized true artistic spirit. I am profoundly, truly sorry." Lena watched him, her own anger slowly ebbing, replaced by a stunned contemplation. The sincerity in his tearful confession was undeniable, a raw, exposed vulnerability she hadn't expected from the stern principal of her youth. A fragile quiet settled between them, the raw emotions of the confession giving way to a new, tentative space. Lena, her gaze still thoughtful, gestured towards a corner of the room, where canvases leaned against the wall and sketches were tacked to a makeshift board. The YouTube hook, asterisk, her art tells her story. A principal sees the masterpiece he almost destroyed. Asterisk highlighted the power of her work. It's still here," she said, her voice softer now, almost a whisper. "The art, I mean." Hesitantly, she picked up a canvas. A vibrant cityscape rendered with a unique, almost defiant energy, clearly influenced by the new pencils Arthur had left. She explained the stories within the brushstrokes, the hidden meanings, the resilience woven into the colors. Arthur stepped closer, his heart swelling with a mixture of awe and profound regret. He saw not just paintings, but Lena's enduring spirit, her voice, her uncrushable soul. The vibrancy, the raw emotion, the undeniable talent, it was all there, a testament to a gift he had once almost extinguished. "It's magnificent, Lena," he breathed, his voice thick with admiration. "Truly magnificent. I had no idea." Lena turned from her art, her eyes searching Arthur's, a complex swirl of emotions within their depths. The YouTube hook, asterisk, can a heartbroken artist forgive the man who shattered her dreams? The answer will surprise you. Asterisk built the tension of this pivotal moment. "The expulsion," she began, her voice regaining some of its earlier tremor. "It broke something inside me, Mr. Finch. It made me question everything, especially my own worth. It took years to piece myself back together, to believe in my art again, to even dare to dream." She paused, drawing a deep breath. "But seeing you here, listening to you, and knowing about the pencils, it shows me something. It shows me you've changed, that you truly regret it." Forgiveness, she knew, was a heavy cloak to offer, not a light garment to toss aside. "It doesn't erase the past," she continued, "the lost opportunities, the struggle, but your honesty, your efforts, they matter. They truly do." Arthur simply nodded, his eyes filled with a humble hope. He understood that forgiveness wasn't a sudden switch, but a tender, hesitant bloom, nurtured by genuine remorse and consistent action. Arthur stepped forward, his gaze earnest, devoid of the pity or condescension Lena had come to expect from those in power. The YouTube hook, asterisk, the principal's ultimate act of redemption, a promise to rebuild a future he almost destroyed, asterisk, signaled a turning point. "Lena," he said, his voice firm with renewed purpose, "I cannot undo the past, but I can and I will help build your future." He laid out his intentions, not as charity, but as a solemn commitment. "I want to help you secure a proper art studio, a space where you can create without worry. I want to establish a fund for Maya's education, ensuring she has every opportunity you were denied. And I want to connect you with galleries, with patrons, with the world that deserves to see your art." His words were a steady stream of genuine support. Lena listened, overwhelmed. Her eyes, once so guarded, softened with a cautious hope. "Mr. Finch, I don't know what to say." "Say nothing," Arthur replied gently, a small, genuine smile touching his lips. "Just let me help you. Let me finally do what I should have done 20 years ago. The next morning, the quiet calm of Arthur's home was shattered by the insistent ring of his landline. He knew, instinctively, who it would be. Mr. Harrison. The YouTube hook, asterisk, the past tries to pull him back. Will Arthur stand firm or betray Lena again? Asterisk highlighted the renewed external conflict. Arthur. Harrison's voice boomed, sharp and accusatory. I hear you've been associating with that Petrova girl. Still causing trouble, I suppose. I warned you against these types, Arthur. They're nothing but troublemakers, always looking for an angle. Arthur gripped the phone, his knuckles white, but his resolve was iron. Mr. Harrison, he said, his voice clear and steady, devoid of his old deference. Lena Petrova is an artist of immense talent and a woman of profound resilience. She is not a troublemaker. She is someone I wronged, and I am committed to helping her thrive. Harrison scoffed. You're being sentimental, Arthur. You'll regret this. Perhaps, Arthur countered, but at least this time, I'll regret it for the right reasons. He hung up, a profound sense of liberation washing over him. The shadow of the old board, of his old fears, had finally lifted. Weeks later, the scent of fresh paint and possibility filled the air of Lena's new art studio. It was a bright, airy space above a small bakery, sunlight streaming through large windows onto canvases and drawing tables. Lena and Maya, their faces alight with joy, explored every corner. Maya giggled, already claiming a spot on the floor for her own sketches. The YouTube hook, asterisk, a fresh start. Lena's new art studio is more than just a room, it's a promise. Asterisk captured the hopeful essence of the scene. Lena's quiet gratitude was evident in every touch, every smile. Arthur stood at the doorway observing them. He wasn't needed inside, not directly. His role now was to watch, to witness the blossoming of a life he had once nearly crushed. As Lena laughed, showing Maya a new easel, a profound sense of peace settled over Arthur. The heavy weight of 2 decades of guilt had finally lifted, replaced by a quiet, enduring purpose. He had found his own redemption, not in a grand gesture, but in the quiet act of helping another find her way home to herself. The aroma of coffee and fresh pastries mingled with the subtle scent of oil paint, creating an inviting atmosphere within the local community center. Lena Petrova, once a whisper of forgotten talent, now stood at the heart of her own vibrant art exhibition. Her canvases, alive with the resilience and quiet beauty she had found in her journey, drew murmurs of appreciation from a growing crowd. Arthur Finch, his posture straighter than it had been in years, observed from a respectful distance. Beside him, Brenda Jenkins beamed with a quiet pride, while Mr. Henderson, Lena's former art teacher, animatedly gestured towards a particularly striking piece, regaling a small group with tales of Lena's prodigious talent from her high school days. Maya, Lena's daughter, flitted between guests, her small hand proudly pointing out her mother's signature on each piece. This was not just an exhibition, it was a celebration of a spirit rekindled, a talent finally unleashed. As the crowd thinned and the evening softened, Lena found Arthur standing by her favorite painting, a landscape infused with hope. She approached him, her heart full. Arthur, she began, her voice soft but clear. I don't know what to say. You gave me my life back. She reached out, her hand gently touching his arm, a profound connection passing between them. Your apology, your belief in me, the way you championed my art. It wasn't just about second chances for me. It was about showing me that I deserved one, that my art deserved one. Arthur looked at her, his eyes warm. You always deserved it, Lena. I was just too blind to see it then, or perhaps too afraid to fight for it. The unspoken weight of 2 decades lifted, replaced by a shared understanding that transcended words. Later that evening, in the quiet solitude of his living room, Arthur sat in his armchair, the old poetry book resting open on his lap. The familiar scent of aged paper no longer carried the bitter tang of regret, but the sweet fragrance of redemption. He traced the youthful, defiant scrawl of L. Petrova in the margin, a faint smile touching his lips. The guilt that had been a constant companion, a ghost haunting the corners of his mind for 20 years, was finally gone. It hadn't vanished in a dramatic flash, but had dissolved slowly, steadily, replaced by a quiet, profound contentment. He had found his peace, not in forgetting, but in remembering and, more importantly, in atoning. His life, once so defined by a single, painful mistake, was now rich with purpose. The public library, once a refuge for Arthur's quiet despair, now buzzed with a different energy. He was there almost every day, not as a lonely patron, but as a volunteer, his hands busy shelving books, his voice cheerful as he read to children in the corner. He helped a young student find research for a history project, his eyes twinkling with his old principal's wisdom, but now softened by empathy. Brenda Jenkins watched him from behind her desk, a subtle, knowing smile playing on her lips. She saw the light in his eyes, the gentle curve of his smile, the way he engaged with every person who walked through the door. Arthur had not just found a new purpose. He had found a new way of being, a connection to the community he had once felt so separate from. In the heart of the town square, a large, vibrant mural began to bloom under Lena's skilled hand. It was a community project, a kaleidoscope of local history and shared dreams, bringing together young and old, longtime residents and new faces. Lena moved with confident grace, guiding volunteers, her laughter echoing freely. Maya, paintbrush in hand, added her own bright splashes of color under her mother's watchful eye. Arthur stood on the periphery, a contented observer, watching as Lena's art became a bridge, uniting people. He saw Mr. Harrison, the former school board member, hesitantly add a stroke of blue to the sky, a flicker of admiration replacing his usual sternness. Lena's art, once deemed a disruption, was now a powerful force for unity and healing. One afternoon, Arthur and Lena sat in a quiet corner of the library, the poetry book resting between them. The sunlight streamed through the tall windows, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. "It's funny," Lena mused, her finger tracing the faded inscription. "This book, this simple object, held so much pain for so long. Now it feels different." Arthur nodded, his gaze distant. "Our lives, Lena, are not defined by the titles we hold or the wealth we accumulate. They are woven from the threads of our actions, the kindness we extend, the forgiveness we offer, and the courage to right our wrongs." They spoke of the quiet strength found in resilience, the unexpected grace of second chances, and the profound, immeasurable value of human connection. This was the true legacy, they realized, not etched in stone or printed in ledgers, but alive in the hearts they touched. Late into the night, in her bustling studio, Lena picked up the old poetry book. The walls around her were adorned with her latest creations, pieces that spoke of joy, struggle, and the triumph of the human spirit. Her art was no longer a secret refuge, it was a beacon. She opened the book to the familiar page, her youthful handwriting still there, a testament to the girl she once was. With a confident, mature hand, Lena added a new inscription next to it, her words flowing with the wisdom of experience. Lena Petrova, artist and free, thanks to a second chance, a story of kindness found, and a future painted anew. She closed the book, a contented smile gracing her lips, a silent promise to herself and to the man who had helped her reclaim her story. A sunny morning bathed the public library in a warm, golden glow. Brenda Jenkins watched from her desk as Arthur, his silver hair catching the light, knelt beside Maya, helping her choose a book from the children's section. The library hummed with life, a constant ebb and flow of stories being discovered, questions being answered, and connections being forged. It was no longer just a building filled with books. It was a vibrant hub, a testament to the enduring power of human connection and the quiet miracles of second chances. Brenda smiled, a silent acknowledgement of the healing power of stories and the profound kindness that had transformed not just 2 lives, but an entire community. Arthur Finch, the guilt-ridden principal, and Lena Petrova, the expelled artist. Their journey reminds us that true legacies are not built on power or prestige, but on kindness, empathy, and the courage to seek and grant forgiveness. Their story is a powerful testament that every person holds immeasurable potential waiting to be unlocked, and that compassion can indeed heal the deepest wounds, paving the way for a future painted with hope and renewed purpose. If Arthur and Lena's story touched your heart, we want to hear from you. What would you have done in Arthur's position? Have you ever given or received a second chance that completely changed your life? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Your stories inspire us all. Don't forget to like this video and share with someone who appreciates a powerful story about the enduring impact of kindness and the beauty of redemption. And most importantly, subscribe to our channel for more real-life dramas that will move you, inspire you, and remind you of the extraordinary stories hidden within ordinary lives.